The mask will fall, look beneath it. Seneca, they say actions speak louder than words. That's a comforting lie we tell ourselves to feel safe. The truth is, actions are often meticulously crafted performances designed to deceive. Words, too, can be deceptive, but it's in the asterisk silence between words and actions where deception truly thrives. It's in the micro-expressions, the fleeting hesitations, the subtle shifts in body language that betray the carefully constructed facade. We've been conditioned to focus on what's being said, what's being overtly displayed. This makes us blind to the real conversation happening beneath the surface, a conversation spoken in the silent language of deception. This language is universal, yet most remain oblivious to its nuances. They are chess pieces, not chess players, moved across the board without understanding the game. The naive believe a firm handshake and direct eye contact signify honesty. This is precisely the kind of predictable behavior a practiced liar exploits. They know what you expect, and they deliver the performance flawlessly. True deception detection requires a different approach. It demands we become students of the subconscious, skilled interpreters of involuntary signals. It means recognizing the subtle inconsistencies, the barely perceptible contradictions between what's being projected and what's truly felt. We must become fluent in the silent language of deception. This isn't about becoming cynical or paranoid. It's about developing a heightened awareness, a more accurate understanding of human behavior. It's about protecting yourself from manipulation and seeing the world as it truly is, not as you wish it to be. Consider the forced smile. It's a classic example of deceptive signaling. A genuine smile engages the entire face, crinkling the eyes and raising the cheeks. A forced smile, on the other hand, primarily involves the mouth, often appearing strained or unnatural. The eyes remain largely unchanged, betraying the lack of genuine emotion. This discrepancy, this subtle dissonance between the intended message and the underlying reality, is a red flag. It's a signal that something is amiss, that the person is attempting to conceal their true feelings. But it's not enough to simply recognize a forced smile. You must understand the context, the situation in which it occurs. Is the person under pressure? Are they trying to please someone? Are they attempting to mask pain or discomfort? The more information you gather, the more accurately you can interpret the silent language of deception. Another crucial element is observing baseline behavior. Everyone has a unique set of habitual gestures, mannerisms, and vocal patterns. These constitute their baseline. Deception often deviates from this baseline. Someone who typically speaks quickly might suddenly become hesitant and deliberate. Someone who maintains steady eye contact might start glancing away frequently. These deviations, these changes in behavior, are significant indicators of potential deception. But it's important to establish a reliable baseline before drawing any conclusions. Observe the person in a neutral setting when they are relaxed and comfortable. Note their typical speech patterns, their body language, their eye contact habits. Only then can you accurately detect deviations that may signal deception. This requires patience, attention to detail, and a willingness to look beyond the surface. Furthermore, pay attention to micro-expressions. These are fleeting facial expressions that last only a fraction of a second. They are involuntary and often reveal emotions that the person is trying to suppress. Micro-expressions are difficult to control, even for skilled liars. They offer a glimpse into the person's true emotional state, providing valuable clues about their intentions and motivations. There are 7 universal micro-expressions: happiness, sadness, anger, fear, disgust, surprise, and contempt. Learning to recognize these micro-expressions can significantly enhance your ability to detect deception, but it requires dedicated practice and a keen eye. It's like learning a new language, a language spoken in milliseconds and etched onto the human face. Frame control plays a crucial role in deception. A skilled manipulator will attempt to control the narrative, to frame the situation in a way that favors their agenda. They will use language, body language, and even physical positioning to exert dominance and influence the perceptions of others. Be aware of these tactics. Recognize when someone is trying to steer the conversation, to dictate the terms of engagement. Maintain your own frame. Assert your own perspective. Don't allow yourself to be passively manipulated. This requires confidence, assertiveness, and a clear understanding of your own goals. It's about taking control of the interaction, rather than allowing yourself to be controlled. The world is a stage, and everyone is an actor. Some are simply better at playing the part than others. By learning to decipher the silent language of deception, you can see through the masks, penetrate the facades, and understand the true motivations behind the performance. This is not about judging others. It's about protecting yourself, making informed decisions, and navigating the complexities of human interaction with greater awareness and understanding. The truth is out there, hidden in plain sight. All you have to do is learn to see it. Become a student of human behavior, master the art of observation, and unlock the secrets of the silent language of deception. Deception operates within the cracks of our attention, exploiting the cognitive biases that shape our perception of reality. We are, by nature, trusting creatures. This trust, while essential for social cohesion, also makes us vulnerable to manipulation. Our brains are wired to seek patterns, to make quick judgments based on limited information. This efficiency, however, can be easily exploited. Deceptive individuals understand these inherent weaknesses and craft their narratives to align with our pre-existing beliefs and expectations. They use subtle cues, mirroring our emotions and behaviors, to create a sense of rapport and trustworthiness. This creates a cognitive shortcut, bypassing our critical thinking and lowering our defenses. The psychology of deception is deeply intertwined with the concept of cognitive dissonance. When confronted with information that contradicts our existing beliefs, we experience a state of mental discomfort. To alleviate this dissonance, we often rationalize, ignore, or distort the conflicting information. A skilled deceiver will anticipate this reaction and strategically present their lies in a way that minimizes cognitive dissonance. They will offer justifications, provide plausible explanations, and appeal to our emotions, making it easier for us to accept the falsehood as truth. This is why emotionally charged appeals are so effective in manipulation. They bypass our rational minds and tap directly into our fears, desires, and insecurities. Self-deception also plays a significant role in the perpetuation of lies. We often lie to ourselves before we lie to others. This allows us to maintain a consistent self-image and avoid confronting uncomfortable truths. A deceptive individual may genuinely believe their own lies, or at least rationalize them to the point where they become palatable. This self-deception can make their lies more convincing, as they are delivered with a sense of conviction and sincerity. Therefore, it is vital to understand that deception is not always a conscious act of malice. It can stem from a deep-seated need for self-preservation, a desire for approval, or a distorted perception of reality. Furthermore, the effectiveness of deception is heavily influenced by the context in which it occurs. Social norms, cultural values, and power dynamics all play a role in shaping our perception of truth and falsehood. For instance, in certain cultures, maintaining harmony and avoiding conflict may be prioritized over absolute honesty. In such contexts, deception may be more readily accepted, or even encouraged, as a means of preserving social relationships. Similarly, individuals in positions of power may be more likely to engage in deception, as they have more resources and influence to control the narrative. Understanding these contextual factors is crucial for accurately assessing the likelihood and impact of deception. Detecting deception is not simply about identifying specific behavioral cues. It's about understanding the underlying psychological processes that drive deceptive behavior. It involves analyzing the interplay between language, body language, and context, and recognizing the cognitive biases that can cloud our judgment. It requires a critical and analytical mindset, a willingness to question our assumptions, and a deep understanding of human nature. By mastering these skills, you can become a more discerning observer, a more effective communicator, and a more resilient defender against the insidious forces of deception. It's about developing a mental framework for evaluating information, recognizing inconsistencies, and identifying potential red flags. This framework should be applied consistently, regardless of the individual or the situation. Don't rely on gut feelings or intuition. Instead, base your judgments on objective evidence and logical reasoning. Remember that deception is a complex and multifaceted phenomenon. There is no single foolproof method for detecting it. However, by combining a solid understanding of psychology with a keen eye for detail, you can significantly improve your ability to discern truth from falsehood. Consider the role of microexpressions in uncovering hidden emotions. These fleeting facial expressions, lasting only a fraction of a second, can reveal true feelings that individuals are consciously trying to suppress. While difficult to detect with the naked eye, particularly during a fast-paced conversation, training and practice can significantly improve your ability to recognize these subtle cues. Microexpressions often contradict the words being spoken, providing a valuable insight into the individual's true emotional state. For example, a fleeting flash of anger or disgust during a seemingly neutral conversation could indicate underlying resentment or disapproval. Learning to identify and interpret these microexpressions can provide a significant advantage in detecting deception and understanding the true intentions of others. However, it is important to avoid drawing hasty conclusions based solely on microexpressions. They should be considered in conjunction with other behavioral cues and contextual factors. The skillful deceiver also understands the power of distraction. By diverting attention away from the crucial details, they can prevent you from asking the right questions or noticing inconsistencies in their story. This can be achieved through a variety of techniques, such as introducing irrelevant information, appealing to your emotions, or simply talking very fast. Be wary of individuals who try to control the flow of conversation or who avoid answering direct questions. They may be attempting to conceal something. Remember that silence can be a powerful tool. Don't be afraid to pause, reflect, and ask clarifying questions. This can disrupt the deceiver's carefully crafted narrative and force them to reveal their true intentions. Ultimately, the ability to detect deception is a skill that can be learned and honed through practice and experience. It requires a combination of psychological insight, observational skills, and critical thinking. It is not about becoming paranoid or distrustful of everyone you meet. It is about developing a healthy skepticism and a willingness to question the information you receive. By mastering the art of observation and understanding the psychology of deception, you can protect yourself from manipulation, make more informed decisions, and navigate the complexities of human interaction with greater confidence and clarity. This journey of learning and awareness empowers you to see beyond the surface, to decipher the unspoken, and to ultimately arrive at a deeper understanding of the truth. Consider this scenario. A high-stakes business negotiation is underway, seemingly progressing smoothly towards a mutually beneficial agreement. The CEO of a smaller company is being courted by a larger corporation for a potential acquisition. The acquiring company's representatives are charming, articulate, and appear genuinely interested in the smaller company's vision. They emphasize the synergies between the two organizations, painting a picture of shared success and growth. The CEO, initially hesitant, finds himself increasingly swayed by their persuasive arguments and promises of a bright future. He envisions his company's technology reaching a wider market, his employees benefiting from increased resources, and himself securing a comfortable position within the larger corporate structure. However, beneath the surface of cordiality and enthusiastic projections lies a carefully constructed web of deception. The acquiring company's true intention is not to foster collaboration, but to dismantle the smaller company, strip it of its valuable intellectual property, and absorb its market share, effectively eliminating a competitor. The acquiring company's team employs several subtle yet potent techniques to achieve this goal. They use strategic flattery to inflate the CEO's ego, making him feel like a visionary leader whose talents are being recognized and rewarded. This cultivates a sense of trust and rapport, making him more receptive to their proposals and less likely to question their motives. They also employ calculated ambiguity in their contractual language, leaving room for interpretation and potential exploitation later on. Vague clauses regarding intellectual property ownership and post-acquisition roles are strategically inserted to provide them with leverage once the deal is finalized. Throughout the negotiation, they carefully monitor the CEO's body language and microexpressions, gauging his reactions and adjusting their approach accordingly. When he expresses concerns or hesitation, they quickly deflect with reassurances, promises, and anecdotal evidence designed to alleviate his doubts. They create a sense of urgency, emphasizing the limited window of opportunity and the potential for competitors to swoop in and steal the deal. This pressure tactic forces the CEO to make hasty decisions without thoroughly scrutinizing the details or seeking independent counsel. The acquiring company also uses a tactic of information overload, overwhelming the CEO with complex financial data, legal documents, and technical specifications. This is designed to confuse and disorient him, making it difficult to discern the critical information from the irrelevant noise. By the time the deal is signed, the CEO believes he has secured a favorable outcome for his company and his employees. He is convinced that he has made the right decision, aligning himself with a powerful partner who will help him achieve his long-term goals. However, the reality soon unfolds. The acquiring company begins to systematically dismantle the smaller company's operations, laying off employees, transferring key personnel, and redirecting resources to its own projects. The intellectual property that was once the smaller company's crown jewel is now being exploited for the benefit of the acquiring company, with little or no credit given to its original creators. The CEO, who was once promised a prominent role within the organization, finds himself marginalized and powerless, his vision and contributions disregarded. He realizes, too late, that he has been manipulated and deceived, his trust betrayed, and his company sacrificed for the sake of corporate greed. This scenario highlights the importance of vigilance, critical thinking, and a healthy dose of skepticism in any high-stakes negotiation. It demonstrates how even the most seasoned professionals can fall prey to sophisticated deception tactics if they are not aware of the subtle cues and psychological strategies being employed against them. The ability to recognize these signs, to question assumptions, and to seek independent verification is crucial for protecting oneself and one's interests in the complex and often ruthless world of business. It is a constant reminder that not everything is as it seems and that trust must be earned, not simply given. The chessboard is always in play, and the stakes are always higher than they appear. The trap is often sprung in the space between what is said and what is meant. Those who fail to grasp this nuance, who take words at face value without considering the underlying motives and unspoken agendas, are the most vulnerable. They operate under the assumption that people are generally honest and straightforward, a naive belief that blinds them to the subtle signs of deception. They fail to recognize the carefully constructed facades that others present, the calculated gestures and carefully chosen words designed to manipulate and mislead. They lack the critical thinking skills necessary to dissect the information they receive, to identify inconsistencies and contradictions, and to question the motivations of those who seek to influence them. This vulnerability often stems from a desire to be liked, to be accepted, to avoid conflict. They may be afraid of appearing rude or confrontational, and therefore hesitate to challenge statements or ask probing questions. They prioritize maintaining harmony over uncovering the truth, a fatal flaw in the world of social chess. They seek to avoid discomfort, thereby walking blindly into the path of deception. The weak often project their own values and beliefs onto others, assuming that everyone shares their sense of fairness and integrity. They fail to recognize that some individuals are driven by self-interest and will stop at nothing to achieve their goals. This projection bias makes them easy targets for manipulators who can exploit their trusting nature and play upon their emotional vulnerabilities. They are easily flattered and swayed by superficial charm, mistaking politeness for genuine sincerity. They crave validation and approval, and are therefore susceptible to those who offer it, even if it comes with strings attached. They fail to see the hidden costs of their desire for external validation. Their emotions cloud their judgment, making them irrational and impulsive. They allow their fears and insecurities to dictate their decisions, rather than relying on logic and reason. They are easily provoked and manipulated by emotional appeals, losing sight of their objectives and falling into carefully laid traps. They react instead of respond, and they are easily baited. They lack self-awareness and are therefore unable to recognize their own weaknesses and vulnerabilities. They are unaware of their own biases and blind spots, making them susceptible to manipulation tactics that exploit these flaws. They fail to understand how their own behavior and communication style may be contributing to the problem, unwittingly sending signals that attract manipulators and invite exploitation. They do not recognize their own part in the dynamic. They are unwilling to learn from their mistakes and continue to repeat the same patterns of behavior, making themselves perpetual victims of deception. They fail to analyze their past experiences, to identify the red flags they missed, and to develop strategies for avoiding similar situations in the future. They remain stuck in a cycle of naivete and exploitation, constantly surprised and disappointed by the dishonesty of others. They don't learn, and so they repeat the same mistakes. They also often lack the resources and support networks necessary to effectively counter deception attempts. They may be isolated and vulnerable, without access to trusted advisors or mentors who can provide guidance and perspective. They may be afraid to seek help, fearing that it will expose their weakness or make them appear incompetent. They remain silent and suffer in isolation, unable to escape the clutches of their manipulators. They have no one to turn to, or they believe that no one will understand. They are also frequently too focused on the details and miss the big picture. They get lost in the weeds, unable to see the forest for the trees. They fail to recognize the underlying patterns and trends that indicate a larger deception strategy. They become fixated on specific incidents or statements, while overlooking the overall context and the broader implications. They are unable to connect the dots and see the cohesive plan being executed against them. Their inability to see the big picture renders them powerless to effectively defend themselves. They are consumed by the minutiae, and the grand strategy overwhelms them. Furthermore, the weak often underestimate the sophistication and ruthlessness of their opponents. They assume that everyone operates within a certain ethical framework and are shocked when they encounter individuals who are willing to lie, cheat, and steal to get ahead. They are unprepared for the level of cunning and manipulation that some individuals are capable of, and are therefore easily outmaneuvered. They assume a level of integrity that simply does not exist. They are also reluctant to trust their own instincts and intuition. They dismiss their gut feelings as irrational or unfounded, preferring to rely on logic and reason. They ignore the warning signs that their subconscious mind is picking up on, missing crucial cues that could alert them to potential danger. They silence their inner voice, and as a result, they are easily led astray. They rationalize away their doubts and suspicions, convincing themselves that everything is fine, even when their intuition is screaming otherwise. This self-deception allows manipulators to operate with impunity, knowing that their victims will ignore the red flags and remain blissfully unaware of the impending trap. They choose to ignore their intuition, and they pay the price. Ultimately, the failure to recognize deception stems from a lack of vigilance, a failure to question assumptions, and a willingness to believe what one wants to believe, rather than what is actually true. It is a dangerous combination of naivete, wishful thinking, and a profound underestimation of the dark side of human nature. It is a blindness that leaves individuals vulnerable to exploitation, betrayal, and ultimately, defeat in the silent game of social chess. The Machiavellian approach to deception takes this a step further. It's not merely about recognizing when someone is lying. It's about understanding the strategic advantage that deception provides and learning how to wield it or defend against it with ruthless efficiency. This perspective acknowledges that social interactions are often contests for power and resources, and that deception is a tool, like any other, that can be used to gain an edge. It is a cold, calculated assessment of human nature, stripping away any pretense of morality or ethics. The Machiavellian understands that the world is populated by individuals driven by self-interest, and that trust is a vulnerability to be exploited. They view honesty as a handicap, a self-imposed limitation that prevents one from achieving their goals. Therefore, they embrace deception as a necessary component of their strategy. Their goal is not simply to avoid being deceived, but to actively manipulate others into serving their own interests. This involves mastering the art of disguise, learning to project an image of trustworthiness and sincerity while concealing their true intentions. It also requires developing a keen understanding of human psychology, identifying the weaknesses and vulnerabilities that can be exploited to gain influence. The Machiavellian understands that people are often motivated by emotions, such as fear, greed, and vanity, and that these emotions can be used to manipulate their behavior. They craft their deceptions to appeal to these emotions, creating illusions that are difficult to resist. They also recognize the power of social pressure and conformity, and use these forces to influence others' perceptions and beliefs. They understand that people are more likely to believe something if they think that others also believe it, and they will use this to their advantage. The Machiavellian approach also involves mastering the art of information control. This means carefully managing the flow of information to create a desired narrative. They will selectively reveal or conceal information to shape others' perceptions and beliefs, and they will use misinformation and disinformation to confuse and mislead their opponents. They understand that information is power, and they will do whatever it takes to control it. Furthermore, the Machiavellian is a master of emotional detachment. They are able to observe and analyze social situations without being swayed by their own emotions or the emotions of others. This allows them to make rational decisions, even in the face of intense pressure or emotional manipulation. They do not allow their feelings to cloud their judgment, and they are able to remain calm and collected in the most challenging circumstances. This emotional control is a key component of their ability to deceive and manipulate others. They see the world as a game of strategy, and they approach it with a detached, analytical mindset. They are not concerned with morality or ethics, only with achieving their goals. This ruthless pragmatism is what sets them apart from others, and it is what makes them so dangerous. However, even the Machiavellian approach has its limitations. Over-reliance on deception can erode trust and damage relationships, making it difficult to build long-term alliances. Constant manipulation can also lead to paranoia and isolation, as others become wary of the Machiavellian's true intentions. Moreover, the Machiavellian approach requires a high degree of intelligence and self-control. It is not simply about lying. It is about crafting elaborate deceptions that are carefully tailored to the specific situation and the individual being targeted. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology, as well as the ability to anticipate and respond to others' reactions. It also requires a high degree of self-control, as the Machiavellian must be able to maintain their composure and conceal their true intentions, even when under pressure. Finally, the Machiavellian approach can be exhausting. Maintaining a constant state of vigilance and deception requires a significant amount of mental energy, and it can take a toll on one's emotional and psychological well-being. It is not a sustainable strategy for everyone, and it is important to weigh the potential benefits against the potential costs. To effectively defend against the Machiavellian approach, one must first recognize its existence. This means acknowledging that there are individuals who are willing to use deception as a tool to gain power and influence, and that these individuals are often highly skilled and cunning. It also means being willing to question one's own assumptions and beliefs, and to challenge the narratives that are being presented by others. Secondly, it is important to develop a strong sense of self-awareness. This means understanding one's own strengths and weaknesses, as well as one's own emotional triggers. It also means being aware of one's own biases and prejudices, and how these biases can be exploited by manipulators. By understanding oneself, one can become less vulnerable to deception and manipulation. Thirdly, it is important to cultivate a healthy sense of skepticism. This means questioning everything and refusing to accept information at face value. It also means being willing to challenge authority and to stand up for one's own beliefs, even when they are unpopular. A healthy dose of skepticism can help to protect one from being swayed by false narratives and manipulative tactics. Ultimately, the key to surviving the silent language of deception is to become a master of observation, analysis, and critical thinking. It is about learning to see through the masks that people wear and to understand the hidden motivations behind their actions. It is about developing a keen sense of intuition and learning to trust one's gut feelings. It is about becoming a student of human nature and understanding the dark side of the human psyche. Only then can one truly protect oneself from the manipulative tactics of those who seek to deceive and control. This requires a constant state of vigilance, a willingness to question assumptions, and a commitment to seeking the truth, no matter how uncomfortable or challenging it may be. Consider history. The rise and fall of empires is a testament to the power of deception, of controlling narratives, of manipulating information to achieve dominance. Think of ancient Rome, a republic built on ideals of civic virtue and public service, which slowly morphed into an empire fueled by conquest and political intrigue. The Senate, once a body of respected leaders, became a battleground for power, where senators whispered conspiracies in the shadows, forged alliances through bribery and blackmail, and used rhetoric to sway public opinion. The emperors, masters of manipulation, understood that true power lay not just in military might, but in the ability to control the flow of information. They used propaganda to cultivate a cult of personality, portraying themselves as benevolent rulers, even as they ruthlessly suppressed dissent and eliminated their rivals. The Roman historian Tacitus, a keen observer of human nature, documented the subtle ways in which power corrupted, how ambition twisted men's souls, and how the pursuit of control led to betrayal and violence. He understood that the Roman Empire, despite its outward appearance of strength and stability, was built on a foundation of lies and deceit. Wars throughout history are prime examples of deception at its most elaborate and deadly. From the Trojan horse to the D-Day landings, military strategists have understood that deception is a crucial element of victory. A successful military operation is not just about firepower and manpower. It is about misleading the enemy, creating illusions, and exploiting their weaknesses. Consider the Allied invasion of Normandy in 1944. Operation Bodyguard, a massive deception plan, was designed to convince the Germans that the invasion would take place at Pas-de-Calais, further north. The Allies created a phantom army, complete with inflatable tanks and fake radio communications, to reinforce this illusion. They leaked false intelligence to German spies and even used double agents to spread disinformation. The result was that the Germans diverted significant resources to Pas-de-Calais, leaving Normandy relatively undefended. The success of the D-Day landings was due, in no small part, to the Allies' ability to deceive the enemy about their true intentions. These historical examples, though grand in scale, offer valuable lessons for understanding the silent language of deception in everyday life. The same principles of manipulation, control, and information warfare that were used by emperors and generals are also used by individuals in their personal and professional relationships. The subtle art of persuasion, the carefully crafted lie, the calculated display of emotion. These are all weapons in the arsenal of the deceiver. Just as empires rise and fall on the strength of their narratives, individuals can succeed or fail based on their ability to control the stories they tell and the perceptions they create. Just as wars are won through deception and strategic misdirection, personal battles are often won by those who are able to outmaneuver their opponents, to anticipate their moves, and to exploit their vulnerabilities. The key difference, of course, is that the stakes in everyday life are usually not as high as they are in war or empire, but the underlying dynamics are the same. People seek power, influence, and control. They use deception as a tool to achieve their goals. Understanding this is crucial for navigating the complex social landscape and protecting oneself from manipulation. By studying history, we can learn to recognize the patterns of deception, the tactics used by those who seek to control us, and the vulnerabilities that make us susceptible to their influence. The lessons of history are not just about the past, they are about the present and the future. They are about understanding the human condition, the dark side of human nature, and the constant struggle between truth and falsehood. The battlefield is not always a physical space. It can be a boardroom, a family gathering, or even a romantic encounter. The weapons are not always guns and bombs. They can be words, gestures, and carefully constructed personas. The goal is not always to conquer territory or seize power. It can be to gain an advantage, to influence a decision, or to simply get one's way. But the underlying principle remains the same. Deception is a tool of power. To understand the silent language of deception is to understand the dynamics of power. It is to see the world as a game of chess, where every move is calculated, every word is chosen carefully, and every interaction is a potential opportunity for manipulation. It is about being aware of the invisible forces that shape our perceptions and influence our decisions. It is about becoming a master of observation, analysis, and critical thinking. To master the silent language of deception is to cultivate a hyper-awareness of discrepancies, not just in what is said, but in how it's said, and more importantly, in what remains unsaid. It's about calibrating your senses to detect the micro-tremors in a person's demeanor, the subtle shifts in their posture, the fleeting hesitation in their gaze. These are the cracks in the facade, the whispers of truth that betray the carefully constructed lie. Most people are too preoccupied with the surface level of interaction to notice these subtle signals. They are caught in the web of words and emotions, blind to the underlying currents of manipulation. But you, armed with this knowledge, can pierce through the illusion. You can see the strings that are being pulled, the motives that are being concealed, and the vulnerabilities that are being exploited. This is not about becoming paranoid or cynical. It's about developing a clear-eyed perspective, a detached objectivity that allows you to assess situations without being swept away by emotions or manipulated by rhetoric. The truly skilled deceiver understands that the most effective lies are those that are woven into a tapestry of truth. They know that people are more likely to believe